You don't have to buy war, Mrs. Smith. I'm Donna Reed Owen, the co-chairman of Another Mother for Peace. Barbara Avedon, Dorothy Jones, and I would like to share with you the keynote address of our 1970 World Mother's Day Assembly, which was held in San Francisco. Betsy Palmer was chairman of the event. Angie Brooks, president of the United Nations General Assembly and the recipient of our Another Mother for Peace of the Year award, issued a call to women everywhere to join us in the mother's resistance to war. As the first signator, she launched our document on its historic journey around the world to be signed by mothers of every land. We wish all of you could have been there, and that's why it's my very special pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker of that day, Commissioner of Consumer Affairs of New York City, Bess Myerson Grant.
Please watch. I have a great sense of pride sharing this day with all of you and sharing this dais with the people you face. It's very meaningful to come all the way across our torn and divided country and see so many people whose heads are in the same place as mine. The last time many of us were together was a little over a year ago in Washington. Donna and Dorothy, Barbara, Joanne and Paul Newman. We were at the introduction of the Peace Department legislation we all campaigned so hard for, with Senators Hartke and Hatfield and Mansfield and other 79 sponsors of the bill. And I remember particularly at the time Joanne saying she would wear her mother's medallion until there was peace. As she put it, real peace, and not a time between wars. Well, there hasn't been peace, but there have been more wars. Instead of one country with whom we are fighting an undeclared war, there are now two. We are now involved in two peacekeeping actions, one in Vietnam and the other in Cambodia. And as our New York columnist Pete Hamill wrote the other day, the forces of what is laughingly referred to as the free world are moving into Cambodia, burning and shooting and destroying. Kids from Iowa and New Hampshire and California are asked to distinguish between Cambodians and Vietnamese. Artillery is fired at moving human beings. The B-52s fly from our privileged sanctuaries in Thailand to churn up the earth. Here we come, Cambodia. Stick with us and let us give you freedom at 17 rounds a second. In our defense of the free world, we are killing Americans and Asians by the hundreds and thousands. And we are also killing American boys and girls at home. The last tragic four, because they were asserting a legal right, and they were shot by men who overreacted because of our government's shoddy rhetoric. It is really almost too much to bear for American parents. You watch your children grow up, and then you send them away to be killed, and you take your choice, Cambodia or college, Indochina or Orangeburg, Vietnam or Kent State. The President and the Vice President have condemned our children on college campuses for rising up in alarm at the turn of events. Denied the right to vote against the wars they're sent to fight, they grasp at any means available to draw attention to their plight. Any 18-year-old who is responsible enough to shoulder a gun and carry it into the jungles of Southeast Asia is responsible enough to cast his vote at his neighborhood ballot box. Let me tell you something about Nixon's silent majority, a group he refers to often and leans heavily on for support. The term originates in Homer and refers to the dead. In those days when someone died, he was said to have gone to the silent majority. We say that the silent majority is dead. There has been in this country for a long time a silenced majority who were told that loyalty to their country meant loyalty to whatever policy and administration concocted, however disastrous. But after this week's events, the silenced majority is finding its voice. This war is not only responsible for most of our economic ills, this war is tearing us apart as a people. The present governor of California goes on television to say that violence will not be tolerated. What makes him think that we can wreak violence on the people of Vietnam and Cambodia, and that this violence is not going to corrupt the minds of some of our young here at home where it originates? As New York City's Commissioner of Consumer Affairs, I've been telling the people of my city and congressional committees in Congress for the last year that they do not have to put up with shoddy products in the marketplace. And I feel the same way about shoddy policies. You don't have to buy the cliches of peacekeeping actions. You don't have to buy falling dominoes. You don't have to buy war, Mrs. Smith. That's really right. We don't have to buy it as a concept to begin with. We are going to have to re-examine a lot of our concepts very quickly, or we're going to destroy ourselves. And that is what our children have been trying to tell us for the past 10 years on our college campuses and in the streets. John Kennedy once said that we must accept the fact that there is not an American solution to every problem. Our children have been telling us that they won't accept the idea that there's a military solution to every problem. We cannot buy the idea of nuclear war, as Hiroshima made clear in a blinding flash. And we can't buy the concept of so-called limited wars any longer either. We've been fighting a limited war in Indochina for almost 10 years, and we've lost 44,000 sons in it. And now it's become an expanded limited war in Cambodia too. We cannot buy the concept of American advisors sent to solve Asian problems. How old was your son when we first sent advisors to Vietnam? And what have these wars solved? Where is the democracy in Saigon that our sons are dying for? In the hands of Tu and Key, in the jails where they put 35,000 political prisoners, including Zhu, the man who came in second in that open and democratic election, in the newspapers that get closed down when they dare to write the truth, and now Cambodia. All right, so we don't buy war as a concept. It's really worse. We buy it in reality. As taxpayers, we're the biggest consumers of all. And on April 15th, we all sent in our tax dollars. Here, we said to our administration, spend it wisely for me. Go to the market and purchase what I need to make my life better. But we didn't give them a marketing list. And so those busy little budgeters put their heads together, and here we go again. 65 cents out of every dollar for Pentagon products. 65 cents out of every dollar for war, past, present, and future. 65 cents out of every dollar for death and destruction. I saw the budget. Do you know that it now costs $18 million a year to service and maintain our military cemeteries? And they're running out of space? How many more cemeteries will we be buying for our sons? But that's just a tiny part of the war money. Most of it is for what they call our security. And our security, defined by the Pentagon, lies in adding to their inventory of insanity. Pentagon products. They have defoliants that have produced thousands of deformed babies born in Vietnam. And where do you think they store those defoliants before they send them over? In our backyards. They have nerve gas that paralyzes and kills. And where do you think they test it? In the air, over our backyards. 6,000 sheep in Dugway, Utah, didn't die of heart attacks. And that $1 million check the Pentagon wrote to pay for the loss to the ranchers, again, was your money. You bought the stuff that killed the sheep, and then you paid for the dead sheep, and when lamb prices go up, you'll pay for that too. And when Okinawa said, get that nerve gas out of here, and Canada said, don't bring it near here, our Pentagon decided to put it on trains and carry it through our backyards across the country, load it on ships, and dump it in the Atlantic Ocean. But the public said no, and so the Pentagon came up with a new security plan. Bring it into Seattle and take it down to Oregon and store it. Perfectly safe, they said. And then suddenly came a change in orders. Everyone in Western Washington and Oregon out. And where were they going to go? And while Congress authorizes a cut of $28 million in cancer research, we learn that the Pentagon has spent a fortune on botulism toxin. Botulism toxin, 1 ounce of which effectively dispersed could kill every human being in North America. President Nixon told us they would destroy all of the bacteriological materials until the Pentagon explained to him that for security, they need them around to develop the antitoxins. In a period of only 8 years, 1,500 accidents were recorded in the germ warfare laboratories of Fort Detrick, Maryland. Do you know anyone in Maryland? Well, maybe they should get out too. And gas warfare. Why am I telling you in the Bay Area about that? Your sons and daughters got it firsthand at Berkeley when the National Guard tested some gas weapons for riot control which had been used in Vietnam. We bought that gas with our taxes. They're using it on our sons and daughters, and they're paying for it too, with lung damage. And now you know all about napalm. What do you know about white phosphorus? White phosphorus ignites itself in contact with the air. Frank Harvey reported in Air War Vietnam, and I quote, "In the civilian hospital in Can Tho, I saw a man who had a piece of white phosphorus in his flesh. It was still burning." And what do you know about guava bombs, pineapple bombs, rock eyes, and lazy dogs? Such lovely names. Sometimes Honeywell doesn't make any bones about it. They call one simply and unpoetically anti-personnel fragmentation bomb. It's about the size of a baseball, and it contains 250 ball-bearing-like steel pellets embedded in a metal casing. This weapon was specifically designed to be used against civilian populations. And I quote, "The pellet tears the flesh and smashes the bones of all humans in the area while leaving buildings intact." Guava bombs, pineapple bombs, rock eyes, lazy dogs, they're all anti-people bombs. They don't knock out steel bunkers. They don't knock out big guns. They won't even go through a sandbag. All they go through is unprotected human flesh. And soldiers know enough to get out of their way, but children don't, and mothers don't, and peasants don't. Maybe they're learning by now, not that they can do much about it anyway. And the ultimate insanity is the stockpiling of weapons that even the military knows we dare not use. One 10-megaton nuclear bomb has firepower equal to all the explosives that have been set off in all the wars in human history. We have 4,100 nuclear bombs ranging in power from 1 to 25 megatons. And now, although we have almost twice the number of warheads the Russians have, enough to destroy Russia's 50 largest cities, not once, but 15 times over, the Pentagon is about to deploy MIRV, multiple independently targeted vehicles, which will multiply our nuclear weapons 3 to 10 times. And the military is beginning this multiplication process next month at the very time we're trying to hold talks with the Russians to limit strategic armaments. Now, I believe in defense. I don't deny that sometimes it's a dangerous world, and in a dangerous world, a country must plan its defense. But how many times over do we have to be capable of killing everyone on God's green earth in order to be secure? And are we made more secure by multiplying the number of weapons? There have been some very close calls. Dr. Ralph Lapp, one of the scientists who developed the atomic bomb, wrote a report of a plane loaded with nuclear warheads which crashed in South Carolina. 4 of the 5 safety catches on the bombs opened. And if the 5th catch had gone too, the entire state would have been wiped out. This was denied by the Pentagon and later confirmed in congressional hearings. Ever hear of a place called Goose Creek? If the Polaris nuclear warheads stockpiled there went off accidentally, they would take all of South Carolina and parts of North Carolina and Georgia. Experts at the Mershon Center for Education and National Security have estimated on the basis of the number of weapons stored in the United States, the miles per year covered in transporting them, the crash rate of weapons carriers, that, and I quote, "the chances are 1 in 100 that a U.S. nuclear weapon will explode accidentally sometime in the next 10 years. This is where nuclear weapons are located and stockpiled within the United States. All those little target points, nuclear weapons stockpiled in our country. This is where chemical and biological warfare weapons are researched, developed, tested, produced, and stored. And when we look at both slides together, this is our security, bombs and botulism. We've heard the sales pitch for years. You know how it goes. Well, where do you want to fight the commies? Do you want to fight them in Union Square or Times Square or maybe Wilshire Boulevard? Well, we've learned something, that while our sons have been sent out to the jungles of the world to fight the enemy is here. The enemy is in Union Square and in Times Square and especially on Wilshire Boulevard. It's smog. The enemy is in Appalachia and the ghettos of Harlem and Watts, and it's hunger and despair. The enemy is polluted water and polluted air, and the enemy is polluted hope. Well, pollution is not healthy for children and other living things. But while we choke in our cities, our money is spent on nerve gas. And poverty is not healthy for children and other living things. But while millions of children go to bed hungry every night, our scientists are working on better biological weapons to destroy crops. Our cities are burning, and we're devoting our national resources to napalm for the straw huts of Indochina. Why? Because there are profits made on Pentagon products. And there are thousands of companies involved, and some of them are very familiar names to us homemakers and consumers. From the Defense Department's own Defense Industry Bulletin, here are just a few of the most recently awarded contracts. Alcoa, $5,590,000 for rocket motor tubes. They carry fragmentation bombs. General Electric, Progress is our most important product. $5,969,000 for research and development of the Mark 12 reentry vehicle for MERV. Contracts on this item alone are expected to total $40 million. Whirlpool Corporation, $5.1 million for Beehive projectiles. Of course, we know they also make Kenmore and Cold Spot appliances. Bulova Watch Company, $2.6 million, metal parts for fuses for high explosives. Borg Warner, $15,586,000, bomb bodies. Honeywell, $268 million for cluster bombs, rockeye, white phosphorus, anti-personnel mines, and other anti-people weapons. Motorola, $1.9 million, fuses for 40-millimeter shells. Hamilton Watch Company, $9.1 million, mechanical time fuses for artillery shells. General Motors, $1.15 million, electronic assemblies for Mk-48 torpedoes. Westinghouse, $16.9 million for Poseidon launcher and handling equipment. I wouldn't be surprised if it carried on the steel belly. You can be sure if it's Westinghouse. Every one of these companies spends millions on you. It's called consumer research. They want to know where you're at so that they can sell you their latest products. Well, let's tell them where we're really at. When we found out about cyclamates, we took them off the market. When we learned that thalidomide deformed our babies, we took it out of the drug line. Now DDT is going, and next year cigarette advertising will be off the television tube. Each day it becomes clearer to us that we consumers must act in self-defense, in defense of the health of our families, of our society. We must stop buying war. At last we know, with all that's under us, and all that's over us, and all that passes across our land, it's like going to sleep each night with a vial of nitroglycerin under our pillows. A larger and larger vial of nitroglycerin under our pillows each night is not security. We must draw the finish line to the arms race, because it is clear that the brilliant technology that took our astronauts to the moon will, if unchecked, take us all to the moon, and without rocket ships. Another Mother for Peace calls upon General Motors, get out of the war business, make us a car that won't pollute our air, and we'll buy it. Another Mother for Peace calls on Dow Chemical, get out of the war business, make us a detergent that won't pollute our waters, and we'll buy that. Another Mother for Peace calls on General Electric, get out of the war business, design us cities that are livable. And another Mother for Peace calls upon Whirlpool, get out of the war business, develop new disposable equipment, clean up our landscape. And we call upon Bulliver Watch, we call upon Hamilton Watch to recognize that the time is now. Honeywell, Alcoa, Borg Warner, Reynolds, Zenith, Motorola, RCA, get out of the war business, make us the products that give quality to life, make us proud again of our American know-how, because war profits are without honor in this desperate time. This time of our coming together must not be the culmination of this special effort, but the beginning of a stronger commitment, the beginning of working with each other and with our young to the end of war, to the end of killing, and for peace.
We are glad that through this film you could be with us. If you would like a reprint of Bess Myerson Grant's speech, or would like to find out what you can do in our democracy to influence our government, to place the priorities of life over the priorities of death, write to us, Another Mother for Peace, Beverly Hills, California.